The Galactic Council had always been a place of mockery when it came to humanity. Ambassador Zexathari of the Vorthak Empire adjusted his crystalline exoskeleton as he prepared to deliver what he assumed would be another routine dismissal of the human delegate's proposal. The vast amphitheater, carved from a single asteroid and suspended in the void between three dying stars, hummed with the translated chatter of 1,000 species. "The humans wish to speak again," Counselor Melnara announced, her forearms gesturing dismissively. Her aquatic species had evolved in the crushing depths of oceanic worlds, giving her natural authority that commanded respect. Something about collaborative defense initiatives. Laughter rippled through the assembly, not the warm, familiar sound of human amusement, but a cacophony of clicks, whistles, harmonic vibrations, and electromagnetic pulses that somehow conveyed universal derision. The Zelthrani delegation's bioluminescent patches flashed in patterns that roughly translated to amusing primitives, while the gas-based ethereals created swirling vortexes that their species used to express contempt. Dr. Sarah. Chen stood at the central podium, her simple environmental suit a stark contrast to the exotic forms surrounding her. She had represented humanity for 3 years now, enduring the same pattern. Proposals dismissed, requests denied, warnings ignored. The galaxy's eldest civilizations, some spanning millions of years, viewed humans as barely evolved apes who had stumbled into space travel through luck rather than wisdom. "Honored counselors," Chen began, her voice steady despite knowing what was coming. "Our long-range sensors have detected anomalous energy signatures at the galaxy's edge. The patterns suggest patterns?" Zexthari's translator crackled with electronic amusement. "The species that has existed for barely 10,000 years presumes to interpret cosmic phenomena that our ancestors monitored before their sun ignited." The Vorthak Empire had ruled the galaxy's eastern spiral arm for 2 million years. Their technology was so advanced it appeared magical to younger species. Their cities floating in the coronas of stars, their minds enhanced beyond biological limitations. To them, humanity was an infant species playing with toys they didn't understand. If the counselors would examine the data, Chen persisted. "We have examined your data," or Melnara interrupted, her translator conveying patronizing patience. "Your instruments detect solar wind fluctuations and interpret them as threats. Your species sees patterns in chaos because your brains evolved to find predators in rustling grass. This is not a forum for sharing nightmares born of primitive fear." More laughter. Chen had heard variations of this speech dozens of times. Humanity's paranoia, their tendency to prepare for the worst, their insistence on building weapons and defenses for theoretical threats. These were seen as evolutionary holdovers from their violent past, not wisdom worth heeding. The session ended as they always did. Chen returned to the human observation post, a modest station granted to them as a gesture of galactic charity, and compiled her report for Earth. Another warning ignored. Another plea for cooperation dismissed. 3 months later, the first border systems went dark. The ethereals, who existed as conscious energy patterns in the void between galaxies, were the first to encounter them. The entities, for lack of a better term, consumed not just matter and energy but space-time itself, leaving behind regions of absolute nothingness that even light could not cross. The ethereal's emergency broadcast reached the Council in fragments. Unknown, consuming. Reality itself cannot stop. Then silence. Panic spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Council convened in permanent emergency session as reports flooded in. The invaders moved with impossible speed, their technology so alien that the galaxy's greatest minds couldn't even comprehend its basic principles. Entire star systems simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but erased from reality as if they had never been. The Vorthak Empire's billion-year-old battle fleets engaged the entities at the Kepler Divide. Weapons that could crack planets and reshape matter at the quantum level proved utterly ineffective. The invaders didn't destroy the Vorthak ships, they absorbed them, converting their exotic matter and energy into more of themselves. In 6 weeks, the eastern spiral arm fell silent. How long until they reached the core worlds? Melnara asked, her forearms trembling with fear that her aquatic ancestors had never known. The projection showed the expanding void like a cancer consuming the galaxy. Conservative estimates gave them 4 months before the invaders reached the council chambers themselves. "What do our strategists recommend?" Zexathari inquired, though his crystalline form had dimmed considerably since losing contact with his homeworld. "Evacuation to the satellite galaxies," came the reply. "We might preserve some remnant of civilization." It was then that Dr. Sarah Chen requested to address the council. The human delegate stood at the same podium where she had been mocked countless times. But now the amphitheater was half empty. Many species had already begun their desperate exodus to intergalactic space. "Honored counselors," she began, and this time the chamber fell silent. "Humanity offers a different solution." She activated the holographic display, showing specifications for weapons and defensive systems that made no sense to the assembled minds. Where galactic technology sought elegance and efficiency, human designs were crude, redundant, and seemingly barbaric. Where other species built precision instruments, humans built systems with backups for their backups. "Our approach is based on what you've always called our greatest weakness," Chen explained. "We prepare for the impossible. We build for scenarios that have never happened. We assume everything will go wrong and plan accordingly." The designs showed weapons that could be mass-produced using any available matter, shield generators that drew power from quantum fluctuations, and tactics that assumed total technological failure. Most importantly, they showed humanity's greatest strength: adaptability. "You've spent millions of years perfecting your civilizations," Chen continued. "You've eliminated war, suffering, and uncertainty. You've forgotten how to fight an enemy you don't understand. But humans? We've been fighting the unknown our entire existence." Zexathari's translator wavered with uncertainty. "These designs, they're so primitive." "Primitive enough to work when nothing else will," Chen replied. "The entities absorb and redirect advanced technology, but they seem to struggle with systems so simple they border on crude mechanical processes. Our weapons don't require exotic matter or quantum computing. They use chemical explosives, magnetic acceleration, and basic physics that apparently confuse beings who exist outside normal spacetime." The proof came at the Battle of Rigel 7, where human forces, augmented by desperate volunteers from across the galaxy, made their stand. The crude human warships built from asteroid metal and powered by fusion reactors proved surprisingly effective. Their simple projectile weapons, guided by basic computer systems, could actually damage the entities. More importantly, human tactical doctrine, born from thousands of years of warfare against their own species, proved adaptable to fighting an incomprehensible enemy. Where other species sought to understand their foe before engaging, humans simply observed, adapted, and attacked. The tide began to turn. The galaxy's youngest species, armed with the crude weapons their elders had mocked, started pushing back the entities that had consumed civilizations millions of years old. Human commanders, trained in the brutal pragmatism of their species' military history, taught alien officers how to fight dirty, how to use surprise and deception, how to sacrifice the few to save the many. Admiral Zhang Wei, commanding the combined galactic fleet from the bridge of the Terran Defiance, watched the final assault on the entity's primary nexus. The ship's hull was scarred from a dozen battles, its systems held together by what his engineers called determination and spite. "All ships report ready," Admiral, his communications officer, announced. Around them, vessels from 100 species waited for the signal. Vorthak crystal ships powered by human fusion cores, ethereal energy beings housed in crude metal shells, aquatic Melnari in atmosphere suits they'd never needed before, all united under human tactical doctrine. "Remember," Zhang broadcast on all frequencies, "these things have consumed half the galaxy. They've erased civilizations that were ancient when Earth was still cooling, but they've never faced anything as stubborn, as adaptable, and as irrationally determined as the creatures who crawled out of the mud on a little blue planet and decided to reach for the stars." The battle lasted 14 hours. When it ended, the entity's nexus was destroyed. Their expanding void began to contract, and the galaxy's oldest civilizations found themselves saved by its youngest. In the aftermath, as the galaxy slowly began to rebuild, the council chambers were filled once more. But this time, when Dr. Sarah Chen took the podium, the vast amphitheater rose in respectful silence. "The human delegate will address the council," Melnara announced, her forearms raised in the gesture of highest honor. Chen looked out at the assembled representatives, beings who had once laughed at humanity's paranoia, their crude weapons, their assumption that everything would go wrong. Now those same beings wore human-designed armor and carried human-built weapons as insurance against future threats.